This week, we're flying from New York to Singapore on the world's longest flight. Technically, we're flying from New Jersey. It's Newark Airport, close enough. 18 hours across the globe in premium economy. How bad can it be? Or how good can it be? I guess we'll find out. We'll also explore why there's no economy seats on this plane and dive into the past, present, and future of ultra long-haul flying.
Today we got a big one. The biggest. I'm like sort of not looking forward to this one. World's longest flight today. New York to Singapore. I think it's going to be like 17, 18 hours. Premium economy. The lowest class that they got on these planes. Yeah, this plane has 67 seats in business class, 94 seats in premium economy. I'm sat down the back in premium economy. I did get one of the solo seats, so it'll be interesting to check that out. I haven't done Singapore Airlines premium economy before. I've done Singapore Airlines business class once. Service is great. I wasn't actually that impressed by the business class seats, so yeah, I guess that's a good thing I'm not flying business class today. And it is the world's longest flight. I will fight you on this one.
I ended up going on a bit of an incoherent ramble here about why this is indeed the world's longest flight, but I'll just justify it quickly now. If you search online or check Wikipedia, you'll often see that Singapore Airlines' JFK service is actually listed as the longest. And this claim is based on the Great Circle distance, the shortest straight line path between 2 points on the globe. Technically, the direct path between Singapore and JFK is 3 miles longer than the path between Singapore and Newark. However, Singapore Airlines doesn't fly this direct route. Instead, due to the way that the jet streams work, flights from Singapore to both of the New York City airports take an eastbound route. They head over northern Asia, cross the Pacific, fly over northern Canada, and then descend into New York. This path, though it's about 1,000 miles longer than the direct route, ends up being the fastest route due to tailwinds. For the return trip, things get a little bit more complex. Before the Russia-Ukraine conflict, flights from New York back to Singapore would sometimes follow a more direct route over the North Pole and down through Russia and China. But alternatively, they would also take an easterly route via Europe, then over parts of Russia and down into Singapore. But with the current restrictions on Russian airspace, Singapore Airlines is now limited to exclusively flying that eastbound route across the Atlantic, passing over Europe and then routing around Turkey and India before reaching Singapore. This routing means that the Newark flight is slightly longer than the JFK flight, since if you know your New York City airports, Newark sits to the west of JFK. And to settle this debate for good, I've analysed just over 500 of the most recent flights between Singapore and New York. On average, the Newark to Singapore flight takes 18 hours and 19 minutes, while the JFK to Singapore flight comes in slightly shorter at 18 hours and 9 minutes. So yeah, there we are. On average, this flight is about 10 minutes longer. So I can continue to confidently claim that this is the longest flight in the world, at least by flight time, which look, in my opinion, is probably the most important thing. Anyway, let's go and get on this plane.
Boarding should start any minute now. Let's go. This is literally the case of when everyone's premium, no one's premium.
Please check carry-on baggage for firearms before entering the screening checkpoint. Thank you.
USA! USA! Ha!
So morning.
The way I see this.
Yeah, I think it's all the way at the back, I think. Yeah. Take it. This is handy. Very handy, actually. I got tons of space. This is, seems alright. I like this so far. I might have a bit of limited recline. That might be the only problem with being in this back row, but the toilet's on the other side, so I don't have a toilet directly behind me. This is amazing. This thing is huge. Screen looks good. Initial impressions are, this might not be too bad at all. Hot towel, not bad. Not bad at all. People are walking around in the aisles while the plane's taxiing. It's chaotic.
Ensure that your tray table is still...
Alright, so they're now coming around with the drinks. I guess actually all the service, it'll all be pretty rapid because there's not many people on this plane. And it's not even full. I think I was saying before, I'm not sure if I wanted this seat. I think I did.
I mentioned this being a special seat, but don't actually really explain it, so let's do that now. This seat is one of the 6 solo seats that are located in the last 3 rows of the premium economy cabin. I guess they're a little special. You don't have anybody sitting next to you, and there's this big storage bin that also doubles as a big flat surface you can put all your stuff on during the flight. Now, I paid extra for this seat, quite a bit extra to be honest. It was $140 just to reserve this specific seat. Yes, that's a lot of money. It was great to have nobody next to me, and the storage bin was incredibly handy, but I don't think I would pay this much again if I wasn't filming this video, especially as this was a large chunk of the entire cost of the ticket. We'll get to the total price I paid a little later in the video.
No, I think we've just gotten up to cruising altitude. The flight time's looking like it's going to be 17 hours and 50 minutes, basically 18 hours. So a bit quicker than the average, as we saw before. So far, so good. Okay, so I've just found the headphones. They're actually noise-cancelling headphones, and they look not too bad. We've got earphone condoms. I personally just like to do it raw. I'm going to have to cut that clip. They're a little bit noise-cancelling, but like nowhere near as good as Sony's or Bose headphones. They're definitely not incredible, but they'll do the job. They'll do the job.
The only thing worse than no TV is golf on TV.
So we've got an orange juice, plastic cup, don't know about that, and some peas and crackers. I would have definitely preferred the Malaysian Airlines peanuts, but a little spicy, I think the meal service is starting. It smells ridiculously good around here. Kind of sucks sitting at the back because I'm really hungry. I think everyone that did book the cook is getting theirs now. I didn't do book the cook this time. I did that last time I flew Singapore Airlines. I got like the lobster or whatever. It was really good, but I thought I should just try the more usual, what's a standard meal like. And also, I don't know, I didn't know what I was going to want in a month's time. You don't want to know, It's good to have a bit of mystery. Should have mentioned there's a pillow and a blanket as well. It's actually a pretty reasonable pillow. The blanket seems quite nice too. It is incredibly cold on this plane, by the way. People who have done the book the cook are now getting ice cream, and I still haven't got my meal yet. If you want to eat quickly, do book the cook. There's quite a bit of turbulence. Oh my god. Yeah, so we've got the beef with rice and broccolini and carrot, I want to say. Beef's a little dry. Yeah, they've really overcooked the top of the beef. You know it's bad when cabin crew has to be seated. I'm quite glad I snuck in the meal service because I'm hungry. There's probably like 5 or 10 people that didn't get their meals yet, so I'm glad my side went first. I was going to say the metal cutlery is nice, but this is premium economy. You should have metal cutlery in premium economy. And we do have a side salad here. Quinoa, corn, tomato, some sort of like cream sauce, and then 4 prawns or shrimp. I still don't really know what's what, but they're small.
He calls shrimps prawns.
This is going to be a very weird analogy. If you've ever grown carrots yourself and then you pull one out of the ground and then just wipe the dirt off and then eat it, that's exactly what that tastes like. It's like dirty vegetable. It's really not a good flavor. It's not even really an okay flavor. I'm hungry, so of course I'm going to finish it. And then finally we've got crackers and cheese. I'm generally not a big crackers and cheese guy, but did I mention that I was starving? I'll eat anything right now. That is the most uninspiring looking food ever, but if I close my eyes and think hard enough, I can imagine that being a lovely New York slice. The turbulence is still pretty bad. The flight attendants have just gotten up now to give people ice cream, but the turbulence is not much better, to be honest. So we're kind of going up and down, I think. They're trying to, get to an altitude where it's not too bumpy, but when they descend, when we go higher, it's just still bumpy. The ice cream's pretty good. I like this. We've got 15 hours left. Just 15 hours. And that was a slow meal service because of all the turbulence. They had to stop there for a second. It's like nothing. Just 15 hours. How does a plane stay in the air for 15 hours? It's just... Anyway.
I want to dive a bit deeper into this plane and very briefly talk about the history of Singapore Airlines' service to the US. Let's get into it. Throughout the 70s and the 80s, Asia, particularly Southeast Asia, was undergoing rapid economic growth, with booming trade, rising demand for air travel, and an expanding middle class. This growth presented immense opportunities, and Singapore Airlines was ready to capitalize. They built out a network connecting destinations across Asia, Australia, and Europe, acting as a bridge between these regions. However, breaking into the US market proved far more challenging. The sheer distance between Singapore and major US cities made direct flights impossible with the aircraft available at the time. In the late 1970s, Singapore Airlines launched its first route to the US, from Singapore to San Francisco. But this flight required 2 stops, in Hong Kong and Honolulu, and this set the tone for many years. The airline needed to route through other cities in order to serve the US. By 1983, they expanded to New York City via Frankfurt, but the issue with each of these routes was that they required painstaking negotiations for air rights from the third-party countries. Singapore Airlines wanted to sell tickets for travel between these intermediate cities and the US, for instance between Hong Kong and San Francisco or Frankfurt and New York. In order to do this, they needed Fifth Freedom rights, which allow an airline to carry revenue traffic between foreign countries along the way to its home country. Securing these rights was no small feat. The US in particular was fairly reluctant, with domestic airlines heavily lobbying against them. This was similar to the pressure US airlines have applied in recent years on the Gulf carriers. The common argument is that both Singapore Airlines and the Gulf carriers are government-owned and receive substantial government support. This whole situation changed in the late 90s and the early 2000s with the introduction of the Airbus A340-500, a plane finally capable of flying the distance non-stop. In 2004, Singapore Airlines launched a non-stop service from Singapore to Newark.
We can now fly you halfway around the planet without stopping, in an aircraft specially designed for the comfort of the executive traveler.
But while the A340-500 allowed them to achieve non-stop service, it was far from an ideal situation. The plane was extremely fuel hungry, and these ultra long-haul flights were costly and weight limited. Initially, the route featured a business class and premium economy cabin, but as demand shifted, Singapore Airlines switched to an all business class service. Although this configuration suited premium passengers, it wasn't the ideal setup they'd envisioned. They also managed to serve LA with the A340, but the economics remained a challenge. Ultimately, in 2013, the high cost of fuel forced them to retire their A340-500s, ending non-stop flights to Newark and LA. Fortunately, in the mid-2010s, Airbus came to the rescue with the A350, specifically the A350-900. Singapore Airlines is the largest operator of this version of the A350, but they also ordered 7 ULR versions of this plane. ULR as in ultra long range. The standard A350-900s have a range of around 15,000 kilometers, just enough for direct flights to the west coast of the US, but the ULR version has a range of just under 18,000 kilometers, allowing them to re-establish direct flights to the US East Coast, more specifically New York with flights to Newark and JFK. Surprisingly, there are minimal physical modifications between the ULR and the standard A350-900. Both have the same maximum takeoff weight, but the ULR achieves its extended range through a few interesting adjustments. Essentially, the front cargo hold is blocked off, so there's no room for bags or cargo there, and the fuel system is modified to increase capacity. The standard A350-900 holds approximately 141,000 litres of fuel, while the ULR version can carry up to 165,000 litres of fuel. This increase is achieved not by adding new fuel tanks, but by unlocking additional capacity within the existing fuel tanks through a software update. Essentially, the tanks could fit the extra 24,000 litres of fuel all along, but if you try to do this on the standard 900,
computer says no.
The ULR also requires limiting passenger capacity to stay within weight limits, hence the premium heavy cabin configuration. The big difference for Singapore Airlines with the ULRs when compared to the A340s is that if, say, fuel prices were to rise substantially, or if US demand completely dries up, they would have the option to revert these ULRs back to standard A350-900s by adjusting the cabin configuration and basically just applying a software update.
I think you forgot to update your software.
Quick back-of-the-napkin maths here. The ULR requires 165,000 litres of fuel to operate New York to Singapore, whilst the old A340s required upwards of 220,000 litres of fuel. With jet fuel weighing about 800 grams per litre and at a current jet fuel price of $700 per tonne, the ULR costs about $93,000 to fuel up, whereas the A340 is more like $124,000. Now, I realise this is probably not exactly right, but with 100 161 seats on the ULR. Did I basically use up 1,000 liters of fuel catching this flight? I don't know how that makes me feel.
Don't care about the environment?
I imagine the ULR situation isn't the perfect solution for Singapore Airlines. Ideally, they would love to serve all of the US with standard A350s and standard configurations, accommodating more passengers across all classes. But for now, this setup is the best option available given current technology.
Let's check out the charging. There's a USB here. There's a USB up by the screen on the seat. And then there's a power outlet down by my feet. A standard plug one. Yeah, I'm just going to plug this in with a USB. Let's see how fast it is. Alright, so I think that one's a 5-watt charger. It's not very good. That one's also a 5-watt charger, so they're both pretty bad. 5-watt charging is pretty slow. At least you got 2 of them, so you could just plug in 2 things. If you need to charge 2 things, they can both charge slowly. I'm in the back toilet. This is like back right. It's very long. It's a perfectly nice toilet, to be fair. I think they might have cleaned it because it's really not in too bad condition. We're about 5 hours in now. Interesting orientation. No windows or anything. Humongous mirror, really. But, yeah. Perfectly usable, perfectly nice. Not bad. Alright, so the lights are now on. I think another meal service. Yeah, another meal service has just started. They're bringing around the Book the Cook and the special request meals. There you go. I'm not sure what we're getting. Find out in a second. I just watched 17 again. Don't know why I'm admitting to that. Strange choice, eh? But yeah, I fell asleep halfway through it, and yeah, I've just been like in and out napping. I think I'm probably finally up to about 8 hours total sleep from last night, so that's good. It's still dark outside. So yeah, we're just coming up over Turkey now. And I guess the sun is currently rising in Singapore, so I mean, I'm not going to do the maths, but I'm going to guess when we get to around India, the sun will start rising. Maybe before India, maybe when we're over, what's that, like Pakistan? I'm not sure. I'm not too hungry now. I came around with sandwiches and they came around with, I went and got chips and this banana that I haven't eaten yet from the galley. But I'm quite thirsty, so I kind of wouldn't mind some more water. Going well, I'm definitely getting over sitting down, but it's a fairly comfortable seat. I've gone with pan-fried fish. It was fish or pork. So it's pan-fried fish or like a seared pork with rice. This is with potatoes.
I'm gonna pretty much just skip over this whole meal. It was slightly better than the first meal, but more importantly, everything that I say here was made redundant when Singapore Airlines updated the premium economy service and meals at the end of March 2024. This tells you that not only do I take ages to edit videos, but also Singapore Airlines probably realized that their premium economy meals were not amazing. Also, if I was you, just go with the Book the Cook options. They not only looked a bit better, but also they come out way quicker.
We're over halfway now. I think we're 10 hours in. We've only got 8 hours left. It's only an 8-hour flight to go. Also, I'm watching Crazy Stupid Love, which is basically a requirement for me. If I see it on a plane, I have to watch it. It's just a rule that I live by.
I'm wildly unhappy.
It's truly at the point now where this is like my home now. Yeah, like this is my new normal now. This is where I live, basically. I've been on this plane for so long. Yeah, here we go. We got 5 hours and 46 minutes to Singapore, and we've been in the air for 12 hours and 17 minutes. So, oh boy. So we're coming up. I think the longest flight I've ever taken was 14 hours. So we're coming up on that now. Still got quite a way to go. It's an experience, truly an experience.
Snack time!
I'll talk about the sandwich.
I meant seat.
soon when we get a bit more light in the cabin because you can't see anything.
I also didn't get back to this at all.
Forgot. Just plain forgot.
So let's dive into that now. Overall, the premium economy seat is very comfortable. It's a large recliner with plenty of legroom and a good amount of recline. It allowed me to get some solid naps in. Given the timing of this flight, leaving Newark in the morning, I wasn't expecting to get a full night's sleep anyway. For a trip like this, I actually think premium economy is a fantastic choice. I'm not sure if it would be worth paying 3 or 5 or even 10 times more for business class, because for the majority of this flight, people in business class are just sitting around watching TV or working on their laptops. And in this premium economy seat, I could also comfortably watch TV or work on my laptop. Now, if you're on the JFK route, which departs New York at night, you'd likely be looking to sleep through much of the flight. And this is where business class becomes more valuable. But even then, if you got a full 8 hours of sleep, you'd still be awake for half of this journey. So you're just sitting there watching TV or working. And so in my overly analytical head, the value of business class actually starts to diminish as the flight length increases. The perfect situation would be if Singapore Airlines sold a 50-50 option, where you got the business class bed for half of the flight and then swapped to the premium economy seat for when you're just sitting around. Of course, this is unlikely, but it would be the most valuable sweet spot in my opinion. Another point worth mentioning is the solo seats in premium economy. I did mention earlier that they did cost a lot more, and while I'm not sure about that $140 price tag, it is a ridiculously comfortable option if you're traveling by yourself. It is very nice to basically have a recliner and a side table. All in all, I found it surprisingly comfortable, and I'm glad Singapore Airlines can't include economy seats on this plane. Economy on a flight this long would be incredibly rough, to say the least.
The in-flight entertainment is solid but not perfect. But yeah, we've got like movies, live TV. They've got a few live TV channels. Obviously all your flight maps. Movies, generally pretty good selection of movies. Now they have 401 movies. There's a lot of good ones, so no complaints on the movie front. TV shows, I take a little bit of issue here. They kind of advertise that they've got complete seasons. And they got 71, but a lot of them aren't actually like TV shows that I know, or they're just like documentary series and like weird little things. And then like take for instance The Office, right? It's got 6 episodes from I guess the first season. I guess that's how long the first season was. But it's like, that's not even a good season of The Office.
They just do that thing where they don't have every episode of a TV show. They'll just have one season or a collection of episodes, which I just really don't like. I know I sound like a Qantas fanboy here, and I'm not, but they have every episode of Succession on their flights. And on a flight like this, I'd really appreciate being able to just watch full seasons, like really get into a TV show. And I just found that I couldn't really do that here.
I've definitely been on airlines in the past that have significantly worse in-flight entertainment, and you really wouldn't want to do an 18-hour flight with them, so. One bite, everybody knows the rules. It's basically a primary school canteen pizza. I'm going to finish it though, of course. All around there's been plenty of food, but none of it's been that great. Anyway, almost there now. Got about 50 minutes till we land, I think.
All right, let's talk about the money.
Let's talk about how much this all cost. I managed to get an absolute deal on this flight. I booked it during a sale for $592 USD for a one-way ticket from Newark to Bangkok with a stop in Singapore. The first leg was in premium economy and that second leg was in economy. Of course, I also paid the extra $140 for the solo seat, so that brought the total up to $733 USD. This was an amazing price, but even outside of sales, it's worth noting that Singapore Airlines often sells a one-way premium economy ticket from New York to Singapore for under $1,000 USD during off-peak times. While that's not exactly cheap, it's solid value for a long-haul premium economy experience. I guess for comparison, a one-way premium economy ticket from London to Singapore is often over $2,000 US. This suggests that demand for the New York to Singapore route isn't as high as you'd expect.
Nobody wants to buy.
Otherwise, prices would likely be a lot higher. Also, quickly, hot off the press, as I'm finishing the edit on this video, Singapore Airlines has announced that they'll be retrofitting new first and business class seats on their A350s, including both the standard 900s and the 900 ULRs. For the regular A350 900s, they're actually increasing the total number of seats from 253 to 258. They're doing this by adding a few more economy seats. But on the ULRs, they're reducing the number of seats significantly, from 161 down to 132. They're doing this by introducing 4 first class seats, Qantas adding 3 more business class seats and cutting premium economy seats from 94 down to 58. And this sounds a bit familiar, doesn't it? It's similar to what they did with the A340s back in the day. They initially had premium economy on those planes, but they eventually went to an all business class cabin. My take on this from the outside is that it seems that demand must not be that high on this route, and it's limited to a small pool of corporately funded business travelers. And this brings me to Qantas and Project Sunrise. Qantas plans to operate non-stop flights using modified A350-1000s from Sydney to London, Sydney to New York, and other ultra long haul flights. These flights are expected to be around 20 hours, making them even longer than this New York to Singapore service. Qantas is optimistic, projecting that once all aircraft are in service, Project Sunrise could boost earnings by $400 million annually. Australian dollars, of course. Now, I'm going to take a bit of a contrarian view here, and I guess we'll see in a few years if I'm right, but I don't think they'll reach the demand levels they're predicting. Qantas's A350s will feature first class, business class, premium economy, and even economy, and they expect to charge a premium for the convenience of a direct route. But I don't think people, especially those in economy, will pay significantly more just to save 2 or 3 hours. Right now, you can fly from Sydney to London in under 24 hours with a stop on many of the Middle Eastern or Asian carriers. And I actually think that this break in the middle adds some value. It gives you a chance to stretch your legs and it just breaks up the journey a bit. Now, of course, I don't have all the specific economics here, but I've got this graph from the Fuel Economy and Aircraft Wikipedia page.
Look at this graph!
Basically, in short, the idea here is that for long-haul flights, aeroplanes need to carry more fuel to fly longer distances, which in turn leads to higher fuel consumption, and so, above a certain distance, it becomes more fuel efficient to make a stop halfway, even when taking into account the energy losses from landing and taking off again. Long story short, I'm guessing the operating costs for these Project Sunrise flights will be significantly higher than the competitors that stop in the middle. If Qantas isn't able to command the sort of premium that they're expecting, then these A350-1000s could be the modern day A340s for Qantas. Who knows though? We'll just have to wait and see. I will definitely be trying my best to get on one of those early Project Sunrise flights, but not with a whole lot of gusto. After this 18-hour flight, I'm not exactly looking forward to an even longer journey. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Check out flightformula.com. I've got an underutilized blog there and some tools for earning and burning Qantas points. Oh, and go check out Wine Tracker Plus too. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.
Simon? Is that Simon?
What's Simon?